A tale of two halves saw Benji pull both a rabbit and a win out of the hat on the Gold Coast. Ryan Hall notched up his 200th career try to move to second overall on the Super League's top all-time try scorers list, and the Bulldogs record their first victory of 2021. Yes, hello and welcome back to the Sideline Chat podcast, the one-stop shop for rugby league. Alongside Mark Henry, I am Connor Marcellus, and today we do our debrief on round 7 of the NRL and round 4 of the Betfred Super League, and we start off today by looking at the NRL results, with the Panthers recording their 7th straight win of the year, downing the Newcastle Knights 24 points to 6.
It was pretty much a given, that one, although the Knights, it looked like it was a tightly contested match for the bulk of it, I feel, but in the end, Panthers put the foot down and continued on.
It would have had to have been that Stafford Toa try he scored when they got it out to the right edge. They were trying to go at Brian To'o, and then that big-ass fend on Dylan Edwards. Just like, he's playing his first game of the year, coming back from injury, I believe it is. And you got Stafford Toa coming in. You just go and get out of my way. Just no chance of stopping him. And at 10-6 at half-time, you'd be forgiven to think that this game could go either way, couldn't you?
Well, I certainly thought that. I certainly thought the Knights could have caused a massive upset, you could say, for the weekend. But as I previously said, Panthers just continued on with it and to continue their winning run.
Well, talking of running, Brian To'o, 336 running meters. I think we might have actually been talking about him last week, also running for more than 300 meters. Not to mention the fact, the try he scored in the corner, which I think was the final try of the game, just with that acrobatic brilliance that he pulled off there.
It was. It feels like he should be a gymnast, not an NRL winner for the Penrith Panthers.
Well, you'd think most wingers are gymnasts these days, with the way some of them try and spectacularly dive for the corner.
That is very, very true. Well, even forwards nowadays, if you see Tavita Pangai Jr.
Oh, yeah, from last week.
Well,
thankfully, he didn't do that this week, and we'll get to Pangai a little bit later on. But Newcastle, what are they not doing right? Is it me, or are they still reverting to the game plan of, let's just pass it to Kalen Ponga and hope he creates something out of nothing?
I think that's pretty much what they're still doing. They're still not quite full strength yet, so maybe when they get a full strength squad back, they might be back to the old Knights, how they used to be before they injury plagued, you could say, has kind of put them on a downhill. But yeah, Penrith, Knights, like I said, who knows? Knights, like you said, will probably to focus on evolving the game plan around Kalen Ponga too much.
And also their edge defence as well, especially with the way To'o tried to dive for the corner. You'd think any strong defensive side would be looking to barrel him over the sideline, but Newcastle's right edge just
did not think of that whatsoever.
Folded up again to the dominance of Penrith's left edge.
Yeah. Well, Brian To'o, back to him, 336 run meters. Who else has run over 300 metres just recently that wasn't a winner?
Jason Taumalolo.
So that's a standard effort from Brian To'o. And he could be on the rep scene soon.
We'll see, but given the depth that New South Wales have on wingers, yeah, I wouldn't think too soon. But Samoa might be a very different prospect altogether.
Not just state of origin, but like on the international rep scene.
Well, talking about international rep, the South Sydney Rabbitohs downing the Gold Coast Titans 40 points to 30. This was literally a tale of two reps in two halves, wasn't this?
Oh, definitely. Titans, they had it all under control in the first half and got out to a 24-10 lead at halftime. We thought, okay, they've got this. But no, Benji, brilliance. Wound back the clock to help Rabbitohs come through and win 40-30.
That game was the craziest game, you'd have to say, the Rabbitohs and the Titans have played, because from the word go, within the first 5 minutes, David Fifita thinks he scored. Everyone's just like, nah, he hasn't scored. He's been held up. Next thing you know, captain's challenge, straight to it. Turns out, oh, hang on, this bloke's actually did score a try.
Yeah, a successful challenge.
And then the second try he scored, I think, was it from the tap restart they had, or was it just it was broken down on attack, and then all of a sudden 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 try.
Yeah. So 7 defenders he beat.
What was that?
And of his second of 3 tries, yet again,
and then bagging the hat trick, becoming the first second rower since Steve Menzies to score hat tricks in consecutive weeks or within the space of 3 weeks.
That is unbelievable.
And then the creme de la creme of the Titans' first half, inside their own 10, spread it fast out to the left to get it out to Corey Thompson. He comes back across field for Jamal Fogarty to be linking up. Just, what was that try? That was just insane.
I think every single time that the Titans score pretty much insane tries. Like, the amount of teamwork and build-up that they do in the lead-up of their tries is just next level.
And then they got turned on its head in the second half as the Rhinos came from nowhere.
Courtesy of Benji Marshall.
Yes, courtesy of Benji frickin' Marshall.
Benji brilliance. He scored 2 tries.
And set up another 3, so he's had his hand in half the tries the Rabbitohs scored that night.
Oh, unbelievable.
But the 6 against, that was also a big factor in the Rabbitohs' second half dominance. The 6 against just absolutely killed the Titans. They didn't even get their hands on the ball, and the Souths were just running in try after try against them.
It definitely was. I thought when it got like really close, like level pegging, that the Titans may have had the upper edge. But in the end, it was South. But I have to say, it's the one that got away for the Titans, I feel like. They had it in the bag.
It was a dominant first half performance from them. No questions about that. They are a good side, but against the great sides that they're coming up against, like your Roosters, your Rabbitohs, and your Eels, and they do have to eventually play those sides. The barometer suggests the Titans are not on that par with a Rabbitohs or a Storm.
Not yet, we must add.
It's a build. It's a build in progress, but there are definitely good signs about the Titans. Just they need to put it together for 80 straight minutes.
But yeah, overall, I feel it was a brilliant game of football.
It's just unfortunate that it wasn't
best this season.
I think the only crime of this game, apart from the 6 against, was it wasn't shown free to air, and this next game was. And this next game being from the top end of our great nation of the land down under, the Eels downing the Broncos 46-6 in Darwin. Well,
another massive defeat for Brisbane.
This is the second time the Broncos have had 40 put on them this year alone. And how many times have you seen the Broncos had 40 put on them in the last 2 years?
Not a lot.
Well, when you think about it.
Sorry.
The Storm have done it. The Eels put 58 on them. The Roosters put 59 on them, and then 58 again.
More often in the last 2 years than what they have in the past 10 years before last year. I'm lost for words for Brisbane. I don't know what to say about them anymore.
And it's the same story again. Like, the Broncos pack matched it with the Eels early, especially with the way they decided to use both their strike weapons. You had Payne Haas take one run close to the try line, Turpin in the dummy half, then Payne Guys Jr. just crashes through his opposite man in Papali'i on the other side, on the same side of the field, and you're thinking 6-all, all right, the Broncos are in this fight, let's see if they can go on with it.
But...
Fun fact, no.
No. But like what I think I said a couple of weeks ago, I think in episode number 15 or 14, whenever a decision goes against the Broncos, they go back into the shell.
Not only do the Broncos go back in their shell, they fall apart completely.
They pretty much go home.
The left edge of the Eels was running rampant. Whether you were Clint Gutherson off a Mitchell Moses karate kick style fly kick, whether you were Mike Acevo bagging a hat trick, Tom Opacek, even Bryce Cartwright, who's had the shit bagged out of him for the last 3 years, and many would say rightly so. But in this game, Cartwright was having a field day.
He absolutely was, and it was so good to see that he scored that try, because he had a pretty, you could say, shocking of a few years. Like, he wasn't getting much game time. He was
out of form, big time.
Oh yeah, massively. But now he's coming to an Eels side, which might have been a bit of a risky signing at the start of the year, but it's paid off.
Well, We'll see how long term it pays off. But in the immediate, with his most recent performance,
Yeah.
that was just. I think everyone's saying the Bryce Cartwright from 4 or 5 years ago that we expected to see. This bloke that's going to make all the rep sides. He's going to be your Blues side. He's going to be your first choice pick in the second row for Australia. And given Boyd Corton's still not there, who knows? Maybe he might in the next few years get his opportunity if he just
Keeps
gets
up his
some
form.
confidence it's behind him and plays the way he did against the Broncos.
Yes. I personally feel the same thing. With Eels, I feel as the season goes on, they're only getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
I think they're well rounded at the moment. And I think going into this year, the Eels' barometer test was Melbourne Storm, Canberra Raiders, the Rabbitohs, and the Roosters. Well, they've already beaten the Storm. They flogged the Raiders, and they got to face the Roosters with it this next week, and they're still not 100%, even though they've come away with the points recently. So the Eels are setting up as real contenders if they are meeting the expectations of the barometer set against the other contenders.
But are they going too early like they did last season and collapse at the end of the season like they did last year? I know last year it didn't help with Mitch Moses being out, but who knows?
It will definitely depend on the Eels' resilience, but the way they are playing at the moment, given that they are sitting second on the ladder, only behind the unbeaten Panthers,
it's pretty impressive.
It is. It definitely is. And also on equal footing with the Rabbitohs as well, who are currently 6 straight wins. Oh, no. Would it be 7 7 at the moment.
Yeah, it's up there.
Top 3 sides. They're amongst the top 3 sides at the moment.
Now, Bulldogs fans, cue the Bulldogs team song. It's been a long time since you've heard this song.
Since September, really.
Yeah. And they finally get to hear it once again.
18-12. And we were leading 18-0 at half time. I'm thinking, bloody hell.
Yeah. But it did get a little bit nervous times for the fans as with 5 minutes to go, Mawani Hirote
finally gets over. I don't know how the Dogs managed to actually defend that entire game. That was just... How many tries did the Sharks try and throw at us, only for our defence to hold strong on that?
Yeah, but where has that been all year?
Well, there's still time.
Oh yeah, but you have come against the Dogs have had a tough.
Penrith, Melbourne, South, and then there were games that we should have won against Newcastle, North Queensland, and the Broncos that did not go our way at all.
But finally, something went your way. And it was very, very good to see.
Luke Thompson played the biggest role in that. 164 running meters, 1 offload, and then 36 tackles out of it without miss, I am led to believe. So a 100% defensive record for Luke Thompson on that front. And of course, Nick Kotrick scored his 100th try. And his first for the Dogs since joining from the Canberra Raiders. And just...
Yeah. And Hopewada Hamini also going over. But all the 18 points for the Dogs came within the first half an hour of the match.
And then no more since then. So
no.
It's a work in progress. But at last we finally got something to show for that.
But after the Nick Meaney try, not long after, Talakai was sent to the sin bin for 10 minutes. And somehow the Dogs did not score even more points on the board. Which... Generally speaking, one-man advantage, you think they will be able to score a lot more points. But somehow the Sharks defended well, or the Dogs couldn't. I reckon the Sharks would have defended really well to try and
keeping on Talakai, I do not buy the notion that this was a shoulder charge.
No.
I don't. I saw him attempting to use arms. That was just a good, decent hit. I mean, it's unfortunate that Matt Dury ended up getting concussed off the end of it because of the whiplash. Hitting the ground at Cogra, but that was just a good hit.
It definitely was.
I mean, we were still on that high of just like, oh my god, what an amazing hit that was. And then it dies down when the referee says, no, mate, that was actually, you made contact with the head, it's on report, and you'll have to go for 10.
Yeah.
That just ruined it.
It definitely did. Then probably need to look at what they call a shoulder charge.
They're moving I think this is the NRL on this. They're moving the definition of what a shoulder charge is, because I think most people can agree that Talakai didn't do a shoulder charge.
And like something else that we're going to mention later on.
That just wasn't a shoulder charge. But,
no.
But not taking anything away from Canterbury for our first win of the year, this is just another problem for the Sharks that just... There's literally no morale. They needed this win. So, because now they've got to face the Melbourne Storm and the Penrith Panthers, and then the Rabbitohs in the next 3 weeks.
That's 3 top 8 teams.
And this is not helping Josh Hannay's resume either, because he was asked to be caretaker after the club decided to get rid of John Morris, but it's just...
Well, since his caretaker role, 2 losses.
And it's going to go 0-2...
And possibly another 3.
It's going to go 9-5 for Josh Hannay's caretakership of Cronulla, and he'll get moved aside or return to his assistant coaching position when Craig Fitzgibbon gets there. But all in all, just the Sharks are in a bad place at the moment, and it will get worse from this point onwards.
Well, especially against, like you said, the top 3 top 8 teams that they're playing against in the next 3 weeks. Yeah, it's going to be not looking good for Sharks fans.
And also not looking good, but at the moment, the Canberra Raiders having gone down to the North Queensland Cowboys 26-24 in Townsville. Or should it have been this way?
Well, Canberra were winning 24-12 at half time.
Well, I think
and they were scoreless
it
in the
was
second half.
24-6 after George Williams went over for that try. And that was some good work from the middle that the Raiders were doing to try and put Williams away. And really expose the Cowboys' middles, still lacking Taumalola. The critical point that I think many people point to was the moment George Williams knocked on from the kickoff, committed a cardinal rule, and then the Cowboys got that second try through Ben Condon right on half time, that really turned the momentum of the game in the Cowboys' favour.
And that momentum continued on in the second half
until the point where the try to Justin O'Neill was awarded, but he was clearly offside when that try was scored. How could the referee and the bunker both miss that offside?
Who knows?
It was the same story in the grand final last year when Isaiah Yeo was clearly offside or had run a block play for another player, but they said, nope, play on, Brian Toto scores, and then all of a sudden, if Penrith had won that and had won the grand final last year, Melbourne would be screaming blue murder for the fact that they scored that first try and the momentum was killed because the player was offside when he set that try up. And it's the same story here. That was the game-winning try that put the game beyond reasonable doubt at 24-all before the penalty. Had that try not been scored, the Raiders come away 24-18 winners.
Yes. But also the referee, well, if the referee and the bunker both missed that, what? You can't really...
If I'm Ricky Stewart, I'm filthy.
You can't really challenge it, can't you?
Well, apparently you can challenge to have tries awarded for you. Surely you can challenge to have tries taken away if they are deemed to be illegally scored.
Well, in that case, in this instance, it was illegally scored thanks to a forward pass.
Offside.
Sorry, not forward pass, offside. Sorry, my bad. The Raiders will be thinking and scratching their heads and wondering why they lost the lead of that match.
Well, I think as well as the momentum being in North Queensland's favour, as well as their defence falling apart, that offside try really would have stung. That just the referee just let it go, no recourse. And when you see the replays, I would imagine Ricky Stewart would have been throwing half of Canberra at the bunker.
Well, the Raiders' defence they're better than what they showed against the Cowboys, especially in that second half. Let's say they can bounce
at 3
back.
straight losses now, they really have to consider they need something to kickstart it. Because they're on the cusp of falling outside the top 8 or even closer towards the pack, chasing them. They're still a good side, but they need to start playing like one.
Yeah, and in rugby league, blink of an eye, and you could be down the bottom.
I don't
Well,
think
there
the
we
Raiders
go.
are pretenders, but they really need to start getting back on track to what we know they are very much capable of. And they'll have to do it without Hodgson, without Papali'i, and with Jared Croker's shoulder flaring up again. That's going to be a big, big ask.
Yes, it will be. And what should have been a victory for Tigers was an absolute demolition.
You can't really
by
judge the
Manly.
Tigers on 5 minutes of football, but it was a very, very... That kick from Luke Brooks, that could have easily been scooped up by the Manly defence, and they could have run away with it. But fortunately, there was the mistake made, and Luciano Leilua crashes over. But that's the only...
That was the only good thing.
That was the only time the Tigers really threw something at Manly. Because since then, they ran right through the middle. I mean, you had Tom Trbojevic break almost like he was a bar of soap.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, first he breaks through the line to set up Daly Cherry Evans. Then he breaks through the line again for Cherry Evans, bobbles it, and then he sets up Marty Tapau, and that's already 18-6 you're looking at.
Yeah, which is what it was at half time.
And then he swings round and makes a meal of the Tigers' right edge defensively, as if the middle wasn't already soft enough. And then some clever kicks, Jason Saab, beneficiary of a Cherry Evans bomb crossfield. And then Ola Kawatu helped set Tom Trbojevic back up through the middle. Manly ran riot. It was a riot.
Yes.
Manly were running the show.
Who would you say was the most dominant player, Tommy Turbo or Daly Cherry?
Tom Trbojevic. You look at this, 210 running meters. He scored a try, set up another 2, and he had 5 tackle breaks to his name.
True, but Cherry Evans wasn't. He was.
He almost bagged a hat trick. Cherry Evans did.
Almost did, but he didn't.
Well,
so him and Trbojevic were definitely the standout players of Manly.
I think this is a lot of what people expected of Manly once Tom Trbojevic did come back in. Just this absolute domination of this flat, hard running through the middle, get Tom Trbojevic in some open space, and he'll create havoc for you left, right, and down the middle.
Yeah. Well, that's what's happened, and that's their 3rd win in a row, with 2 being absolute beltings of other teams. Now,
interesting test for the next week, though.
As I said to Connor, because we'll have it Anzac like watching this game, I said to Connor, Kieran Foran's having a quiet game, isn't he? And as soon as I said that, he goes and scores the final try. Coincidence, maybe? I don't know.
I think it was just... It probably was a little bit of coincidence that you say that, Foran hasn't done much, and then all of a sudden, Kieran Foran goes in, produces some lazy Tigers defence, and that's the end of that. Just like, okay, bag the try. Okay, he's done his job for the day.
Yep. And he was quite happy about scoring that try too.
And speaking of jobs being done, the Anzac Day clash, the main Anzac Day clash, the Sydney Roosters absolutely dominating the St George Illawarra Dragons 34-10.
Yep. 2 out of 2 so far of games that were absolutely demolishing scores. Now, similar to that Talakai shoulder charge,
Michaeli Ravawala, that was not a shoulder charge. That was just a good hit round the ribs.
Yeah, on Josh Morris. Unlike Jordan Pereira, who it is completely fair that he got sin binned and he's missing
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Or 4 weeks, I think you actually
4
said.
weeks. I completely agree with that. That was a very, very high.
But do you agree that he should have been sent off? Not sit down for 10 minutes, but sent off. As I believe Mal Meninga was calling for.
It's a line. It's a very fine line between a sin bin and a send-off. And that one was a very, very fine line between a send-off and a sin bin. But lucky for the Dragons, it was only a sin bin.
Well,
but what wasn't lucky for the Roosters was they lost Tedesco for the rest of the match.
And for the second time in a few weeks, or in a few days actually, the 18th man was called in. Max Ikabalu coming in with Tedesco ruled out for the rest of the match.
And we're just quickly going backtracking. The first one was to the Bulldogs.
Brandon Wakeham, the 18th man, called in after Matt Dury was ruled out after being supposedly what the official line is, being knocked out by Talakai.
Yeah. But back to this traditional Anzac Day game. Bruce just put on a masterclass. Sam Walker yet again.
It almost seemed like another slow start for the Roosters. I mean,
Or not as slow as what they usually have been, I feel. They scored via Daniel Tupou on the 14th minute of the match. Generally, lately, they haven't been scoring until around about half an hour into early in the second half. So, I feel like it's a quicker start than what they had been previously.
well, I suppose 4 minutes after the Dragons bagged their first try. But then the Roosters ran riot with the next 5 tries after that. The Dragons' left edge paid an ultimate price, both with Tupanua and that butcher. Sam Walker, how good is this kid going? Honestly, how good is he going with this?
He's beating all expectations I was doing. Everyone built him up as the hype, and he is absolutely going beyond that hype, I feel. He is next. Once Kiri comes back...
Kiri and Walker. I think the Roosters...
That'll be a very,
Roosters
very strong combination.
The Roosters will still be top 4 for at least another few years.
Yeah, especially with Kiri and Walker, that combination is going to be the best in NRL.
Yes, exactly. And despite Tarek Sim's best efforts, with his 135 running metres, 1 try, 2 line breaks and 3 tackle breaks, the Dragons just got folded in half by the Roosters when all was said and done.
Yeah. And that's the Roosters' 7th straight game against the Dragons. Not on Anzac Day.
That they've won.
That's Anzac Day and the other regular season match combined.
But it is there. I think this would have to be amongst the first time that the Roosters have registered back-to-back wins in an Anzac Day clash.
That is very true. Because generally, games like this one are generally a lot closer, but not this year.
Well, the last couple have actually been close. I mean, Roosters won by 10 in 2019, Dragons won by 18 in 2018, and then, of course, the field goal the Roosters won by in 2017, 13-12.
That is true. So it's a mixed kind of results game.
But for Anthony Griffin, it's definitely back to the drawing board or just waiting for troop reinforcements to come back from injury. Ben Hunt.
Which we'll get to later on.
And
now,
final game of round 7 of the NRL, we have the Melbourne Storm beating the Warriors 40-20.
At halftime, it was 26-4 in favour of Melbourne. We thought this is going to get absolutely ugly for the Warriors.
As some Anzac Day clashes between the Storm and the Warriors had in the past.
Yes. But the Warriors got 2 quick tries in succession. So that wasn't as bad. I mean, 42-20 was a bit of it's still a decent margin to win by, and as for the Warriors lose by. But it's better than bloody what it could have been if they start on 6.
Or a Broncos.
Oh, yeah, pretty much Broncos. One player that stood out for me was the Warriors, debutant Reece Walsh.
And I think you also have to commend the actions of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck.
Yes.
Willingly give up his place at fullback to bring this kid that they brought in from the Broncos to give him a start. And you're absolutely right. Despite the fact he wasn't doing as much work as Tuivasa-Sheck was trying to run out of trouble, he was doing a bloody good job of helping the Warriors set up tries.
Yeah.
Especially that second try he set up for, I think it was Ken Mamalo. That little left footer he put in, and then Mamalo just dived his way to the try line.
Yeah. It's good to see that. Well, he only literally not long signed with him after being.
No, I think it might have been 2 or 3 weeks actually.
It wasn't very long. He's already made his debut, and to me, he's a future superstar. Watch him rise through the ranks.
Well, when you got a mentor like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck to work with, I think he will learn a lot from RTS before he jumps ship to Union.
I'm thinking Walsh will take over Tuivasa-Sheck's fullback position next year, no doubt.
I think Warriors fans can definitely be optimistic if he can deliver on that performance week in, week out.
Yeah. Another highlight for the Warriors, well, not just for the Warriors, but for Kevin Marlowe himself, his first ever career hat-trick.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because he bagged really all the Warriors tries, really.
Only him scored 3, and Ben Murdoch-Masila was the other
try
scorer.
Yes, Ben Murdoch-Masila. You can't keep Big Ben out of the game, can you?
So there was 4 tries, but 2 players scored them.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Kevin Marlowe hadn't scored a hat-trick in his career before.
Especially 2018.
Oh,
Oh,
Definitely.
but then again, Fuzzatua was running rampant for the Warriors back then.
But it's good
As
to
for
see.
Melbourne, they just do what Melbourne do best.
Even without Ryan Pappenhausen.
Well, yeah, no, just you put Nico Hines in, and he does a very solid job at the back. And then you got someone like Jerome Hughes, 2 tackle breaks and half the tries as he helped set up, both left and right of the field, whether it was Remus Smith or Felice Kafusi, or I think maybe even Josh Adokar are as well. Just picking the Warriors' edges apart on both sides of the field. Just that all-round versatility of the Storm backline.
He had a blind over a game, I feel. Especially that first half. He was just, like you said, picking them apart, left, right and centre, and they didn't know where to look next, the Warriors. They were just too classy. Too easy.
That's just what the Melbourne Storm is. You could take we've been saying this for weeks. The best 3 players out, and they still perform every week.
You could have all your first grade players rested and bring the reserve team in, and I'll still manage to win.
Well, they have done that in the past, but it's not a winning strategy all of the time.
Yes, I know that, but that's what I personally feel.
Right, as we usually do with our debrief series, as well as reviewing the previous round of football, we also look ahead to the next round. So we start off with round 8 of the NRL, the Raiders and the Rabbitohs at GEIO Stadium in Canberra. As far as I'm aware, there are no changes to the South Sydney lineup, running out the same 17 that got over the Titans in the end.
That is absolutely correct. As for the Raiders, you've got Jared Croker out with a shoulder injury. When Sebastian Chris goes to centres and Bailey Thompson to the wing. Josh Papali is getting a rest, so Joey Tarpany is taking his spot on the bench.
But otherwise, the Raiders still pretty much the same side that went down to the Cowboys in Townsville. Well, as we elaborated on, we know what the Raiders are capable of. And the 3 losses they've had, you could say they went up against Penrith, and losing Nicole Klukstad early on didn't help the cause.
No.
They were competitive against the Eels, but they couldn't handle the second half onslaught that Parramatta were running in.
Yeah.
And controversially, he conceded a try that should not have been awarded. So I don't know whether the Raiders are finding ways to lose games, or it's just unfortunate circumstances that lead them to lose games.
I personally feel it's unfortunate circumstances, to be honest. Because they've had games in the bag, especially like the ones against the Cowboys last week, that they should have won that one. But no. As for the Bunnies, they're just unbelievable at the moment.
Well, they definitely are.
There's no other really words to describe the Bunnies at the moment. That wherever you put players like Walker at fullback, and even without Latrell, and that they still somehow find ways. Is that a Wayne Bennett coaching thing, or is that just how well the team is overall?
I think it's mainly just the way the team is going overall, that they are. You could take Latrell Mitchell out, but then you have the luxury of having Benji Marshall start at 5'8". Yeah. So you can free Walker up at fullback.
Which is not a bad move at all.
All right. Decision time.
It's a tough one, in a way.
Looking at these two sides, on paper, they're pretty much equals. And the Rabbitohs have fallen to Canberra in 2 of the last couple of clashes.
But the Raiders aren't quite full strength.
The Raiders are in a little bit of a hole at the moment, and they need to find a way to dig themselves out of it. But against this South Sydney side that they're going up against, I think through the middle, Tom Burgess and Cameron Murray are going to lead the way. And then Benji's influence, no matter how much Jack Whiten or George Williams try and throw at the Rabbitohs, I think their defence will be very strong indeed. And I think it's the Raiders' right edge that will fall down defensively to a certain degree. So I will say that the Rabbitohs come away 1-12 victors.
I'm going the Rabbitohs will win, but by a 13+ margin of 16. They'll just be... But the current form that they're in and the current form that the Raiders are in, it looks like that South are the better side. So South by 16.
Well, it's going to be a bit of an ugly month for Ricky's Raiders, as sad as it is, because I think everyone prefers Ricky's Raiders as the second team, don't they?
Pretty much. I was just about to say that, but you beat me to it.
Now, we move on to further south of Canberra. It's the Melbourne Storm and the Cronulla Sharks in the first of the Friday night games. The Sharks have made a raft of changes, some enforced, others are more beneficial. First of all, Talakai has been ruled out for the next 4 weeks after taking the guilty plea. But the good news is Wade Graham is back in the lineup, so Teague Wilton returns to the bench. Braden Hanlon-Ueli also is back on the bench, with Aidan Tolman back in the lineup, starting for the first time in Sharks colours. And Will Chambers has replaced Josh Dugan in the centres, with Matt Moylan being the unfortunate man to miss out, with Johnson starting at 5'8", with Townsend half back.
Very much so. As for the Storm, not too many changes. George Jennings is out, so Tom Eisenhuth comes in to get the vacant spot. There's kind of a new bench with Riley Jacks and Chris Lewis coming in. Selfa Solomon has been rested after showing symptoms of concussion, and Pappenhausen is around about 2 weeks away from returning.
Well, this is still a bit of a spicy clash, the Storm and the Sharks. If they were both playing good, this is spicy. But given the way the Sharks are fallen into this hole at the moment, you would have to say they are not the same side they were maybe a couple of years ago.
No, but it's going to be spicy because new recruit Will Chambers starts against his old club.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see how that pans out.
If he wants to get up over his old club, the Sharks will have to lift. But if the Storm wanted to get revenge, well, you know how Melbourne play, so.
Well, yes, we do know how Melbourne play with that. And I would imagine they're going to go right at the left edge. To go at Will Chambers, who isn't much of an experienced left centre as he is an experienced right centre. So they're going to take advantage of Melbourne's left-hand edge. And maybe they'll try and get Kafusi or Kenny Bromwich lined up against Sean Johnson as well on the Sharks' right edge defensively, because he's only one game back from an ACL injury. So we're thinking, all right, if we can go at Johnson, we can get on the Sharks' right edge.
Yeah.
So that would be our best channel to attack.
Yeah. And it's in Melbourne again, and you know how
the Sharks don't have a good record in Melbourne.
Well, no, and the Storm, they just have a really good record in Melbourne, as it showed last week against the Warriors and other games this season.
The influence of having Harry Grant on the bench should also scare the Sharks. Despite being light in the middle of the field, with only Lewis and Dale Finucane being the only genuine forwards on the bench, you should be scared of what the Melbourne Storm have got sitting on that bench.
Yes.
Especially when he is interjected in the game, he will be ready to tear the Sharks' middle apart.
Tear them apart or destroy them?
Both.
Fair enough. But if you keep Brandon Smith out there as well as Harry Grant out there at the same time, well...
It's a good tactic.
Alarm bells will be ringing to the...
nth degree. They will be. And for those reasons alone, I'm going to say the Melbourne Storm win 13+.
Yeah, I agree. Storm win 13+. By what margin precisely? It will be a 20-point win for Melbourne.
It's just going to continue to get ugly for the Sharks over the next 3 weeks when they face the best of the best.
Yes.
Now, Friday night, the main game, the Brisbane Broncos and the Gold Coast Titans. The Titans have had to make at least one change enforced through injury, with Herman Essiesi finally making his first appearance of the year for the Gold Coast Titans, whilst Anthony Don returns from injury, with Patrick Herbert the unfortunate man to miss out for the Titans.
And as for the Broncos, Anthony Milford returns alongside another new halves combination this season in Tyson Gamble, as Tom Dearden and Brody Croft have been dropped. Jesse Arthurs makes a return after illness and goes into the centres for David Mead. And Alex out for about a month.
On top of the game he missed against the Eels, so
Yes.
of course Jordan Ricky continues to start. What can we say about the Broncos that has not already been said? Whether you're Phil
Unstable
Gould,
halves.
Ben Eichen, Paul Kent, just what has not been said about the Broncos that everyone already knows about?
There's pretty much nothing. Everyone's said anything and everything about them. Another halves combination.
Not good. What have we had? What have we had? We've had
Milford.
Boyd Dearden, we've had Milford Dearden, we've had Milford Croft, we've had Dearden Croft, we've had Croft Dearden.
And now we've got Milford and Gamble.
The Broncos are a basket case. No polite way of saying it. They might have a couple of key standout individuals: Xavier Coates, Payne Haas, Pangai Jr. when he's not taking people's heads off.
Danny Levi when he comes off the bench, especially last week.
Yeah, it was a bit unfortunate that he lost the ball right before he scored.
That would have been such a good story to hear about, but look,
Gold Coast will be looking for a bounce back, plain and simple.
Yeah,
they had a good first half against South Sydney, targeting the right side defence very, very hard, and I think they'll want to back it up here by beating Big Brother again, just to fully cement that the Titans are in fact the number one side in Queensland.
Well, the Titans have had a pretty good record against Brisbane as of late. They won, I think, the last 3 games against the Broncos. I know they definitely won 2 in 2020.
Yes, I think it is.
I think they
a
won
free
back in 2019.
Including the first time they met earlier this year.
Yeah, so 3 straight. It's going to be 4 straight, no doubt about that. Tom Dearden getting dropped, is that because he signed with the Cowboys in recent days?
I think there might be a little bit of spite that the Broncos have said, this is our new Alfie Langer, he's going to be our long-term solution, and then he's not.
Yeah.
It's just plain and simple.
Because one week they favour him, next week they don't. Same with Croft, same with Milf. Pretty much all the halves.
You'd probably need to blow
them one week and then they don't favour the next.
You'd need to blow the Brisbane Broncos up at this point and start again.
Pretty much.
I mean, there's no effort. Even when they do have ascendancy, all it takes is one try and then everything falls apart.
It's like, bye-bye.
And I think this comparison has been made that the Broncos under Anthony Seibold were better than the Broncos under Kevy Walters.
That is true at this stage of the season, but it's not looking promising.
It isn't. It's a Titans 13-plus win.
Oh, definitely. It will be a Titan, like I said, 13+. It's going to be a demolition with the Titans. It's going to be, I'm going to say, a 30-point victory for the Titans. Now, we head further west than Penrith to Bathurst.
Yes.
At Carrington Park for the Panthers-Seagulls match.
No changes for Manly. They run out with the same 17 that put 40 on the West Tigers, and Tom Trbojevic being the absolute danger man here.
As for Penrith, a big name returns. Api Coruscant returns to the starting dummy half, which means Mitch Kenny goes onto the reserves list in the only change made. Now, why would you change a Manly side that's gone, put a big score on Tigers, a big score on Titans, and just a narrow win over
the Warriors?
Why would you need to change it?
Well, you wouldn't really.
It's like with Manly. You don't. Not with Manly. It's like with Panthers. They haven't really changed their team much.
They will have that 46-6 margin in mind, but at the same time, you're also thinking Penrith. Has anyone ever really challenged Penrith apart from the Melbourne Storm and the Broncos?
Probably not.
No one's really.
Knights weren't. As in this season, the Knights were nowhere near it. Well, at the first little bit they were, but then it just died off. But like I said, it's either been Brisbane or Melbourne that have really challenged them.
And there'll still be questions over Manly's right side defensively, which has been exposed as before, and especially even though Matt Burton's still on the side, he's still a danger.
Oh, no doubt about that. He basically is now a utility. I feel like playing the halves, he's playing the centres. It'll be interesting to see when Momorowski comes back, if he stays or goes.
It'll be very hard.
Or comes off the bench.
Or it could be at the cost of Tyrone May getting dropped.
True. But with Manly,
This will be Manly's biggest test under this 3-game winning run they've had at the moment, and I think
that is true.
they are in for a world of hurt once again. I'm looking at this side and I'm thinking leaky right edge. Sure, they've been playing well, but if they manage to handle Tom Trbojevic well, like try and keep him out of the game as much as they can, grubber instead of long kicks, try and whack him in defence, and so he can cough up a mistake and just really test his defence as well. That would be the main thing. And with Api Coruscant returning, it will expose the class difference of the hookers and the dummy half service between Penrith and Manly. And I'm going to go a Panthers 13+ win.
See, this one could go either way if Manly stick with them throughout the match. But it's at Penrith. I know it's not at Penrith, sorry.
It's out further west.
Sorry, I said that before. It's out at Bathurst. Penrith tend to go well out there. They have had a few losses out there. But it will just Coruscant back. It's a massive confidence booster. So Penrith will win, but in a 1-12 margin. Now I'm going to say Penrith are only going to win by 8 points.
Well, we'll see how that pans out. One that says it's going to be a blowout scoreline. The other says Manly are actually going to put up a fight.
Yes.
Up to you to decide who's got it right here.
Yes. Dogs, Eels.
A couple of changes for the Eels. Wiramu Greig has been pushed back to the reserves with the return of Ryan Madison, whilst Hayes Dunster is the other man fresh on the bench, with Will Smith also ruled out, and Isaiah Papali'i retained his starting second row berth.
As for the Bulldogs, Matt Dory and Smith.
Chris Smith,
yep. Have to pass concussion protocols before they are given your clear to play. DWZ and Wakeham are on the reserves bench.
This is going to be a sort of like, for the Dogs, it could end up in more pain, especially the way the Eels have been performing.
Especially in the second half of the matches. Eels tend to play a lot better in the second half than what they do in the first. I personally feel.
Well, this is one of the best forward packs the Dogs are lining up against. We managed to get up over the Sharks, but they have inner turmoils that the Dogs might have known about in the past. This is one of the premier forward packs, and with one of the buys of the year, lining up against the Dogs' right-hand edge, which has leaked a lot of tries itself. I want to be optimistic about the Dogs, because I feel if we can maintain that defence. I mean, I know the Sharks tried to throw almost 6 tries at us, and we blocked all of them.
Yes.
Here, I think the Eels score 3 of those tries. The Sharks didn't.
Yeah.
Especially Ferguson and Sevo. I definitely think put them in the same position the Sharks swingers were in. They half get through, and they still manage to run away with it.
The Eels are classier than the Sharks, don't forget. So you are comparing like a top 8 team with a bottom 8 team. Top 4 team with a bottom.
It's a big. Yeah. It's going to be a big ask of the Dogs, and the only way the Eels have been challenged and beaten is running hard through the middle and trying to match their forward pack head on. But with the class out the back and with the punch in the middle, it'll be very hard for the Dogs to try and match it in the middle.
Unfortunately, I agree with you, because yes, they are coming off the back of a victory, but. They could stick with him. It could be, if they stick with him, it may make things interesting, but he'll just outperform them.
At the same time, if we bomb towards Ferguson's edge, try and force him under awkward high balls, well, that means a lot more turnover, and the Eels have to work harder in defence.
True, but then you have to watch the Dogs not make too many errors when attacking.
Yeah, that is a bit of a problem.
Yeah. Overall, I think the Eels will win by 12. It's not a big margin, but
I think we will be competitive for this game, and as long as we actually roll up our sleeves and try and match it with the Eels, I think a lot of people will be happy that we are trying to score and we are trying to match it, but I still think No, I think if we said this game 3 weeks ago, I would say Eels 13 plus.
Yeah.
But I think it will be an Eels 1-12 victory.
Yeah. So I've just purely based it on that that the Dogs can stick with them. It'll be a 1-12 margin.
And
Knights versus the Roosters in Newcastle yet again.
a bit of reinforcement for the Roosters off the bench with Siwa Tauki returning after being ruled out of Anzac Day with a knee injury, I believe it was, or was it a calf strain?
Calf strain, I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, with his return sees Fletcher Baker returning to the reserves, as well as the inclusion of Joseph Suwali, with the speculation James Tedesco could potentially be ruled out under HIA protocols.
And while you're at it, Sam Verrills gets his starting over
Ben Marshall,
unlike last week. For the Knights, it's the same 17, although there could be a late change or late changes, as Lachlan Fitzgibbon is named on the reserves list, and Tex Hoy is also named in the reserves, so there could be some late changes come game day. If Tedesco is ruled out, Suwali in.
Well, it might not still be the case, but it's definitely an option that Trent Robertson can play with, because he can either put Joey Manu or he can put Brett Morris on at fullback and then bring Matt Ikuvalu in as well. So Suwali might even get a crack.
But coming against a Knights side that isn't a top team like the Storm, the Eels, and the Raiders, and that, it's a bit of an easier team if you're at the Roosters looking at the opponents. Like, I know the Knights, they've got a strong forward pack, don't get me wrong, and they're not a bad team or anything. But compared to other teams around the Roosters, it's easier. So he may bring Suwali ease him into the match. Probably on the wing if they put Brett Morris or Joey Manu in. But that's just what I think.
In the last clash that the Roosters played on Anzac Day, they tore the Dragons' left edge apart through second rowers. First, there was Nat Butcher, who is not here. Oh no, he's back to the bench.
Yes,
and Satili Tupanua. They both scored tries down the Dragons' left side defensively. And that's where you got Barnett, Bradman Best, and I believe you got Blake Green defending on that left-hand side for the Knights as well.
Yes. Look, they've got the forward pack of Newcastle, which, I don't know, how would you match it up against the Roosters? Would you say it's evenly matched with the Roosters, or just a little bit, the Roosters just a little bit better forward
Well,
pack?
Collins versus Clemmer, that's going to be a big pre-origin matchup.
That's a given. Daniel Safidi against
Isaac Liu.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting battle to see as well. Pretty much, it's going to be a battle of the forwards, I feel. And whoever can carve each team up the middle
The Knights
more
can take solace that the Roosters have been recently slow starters. But considering that the Roosters found mojo against the Dragons, who were considered a good up until 2 weeks, until the last 2 weeks, I think the Knights are in a little bit of trouble. And
they will be.
With the Roosters back to what they do best, I think the Roosters will come away with this 1-12.
I reckon it'll come down to if Tedesco plays or not. Yes, they have shown that they can win without Tedesco on numerous times, but it'll come down to see, and it also comes down to see if Adam O'Brien makes the late changes with putting in Lockie Fitzgibbon or not. But Knights will be in trouble. Roosters 1-12 of 8. Roosters will be for 8, to clarify that.
Now, first of our Sunday games, we have the New Zealand Warriors at home to the North Queensland Cowboys, and some big ins for North Queensland. Taumalolo finally here to resume the captaincy that he has been missing from since literally round 1. And that's a big in. Mitch Dunn and Isan Masters drop out again, and otherwise the Cowboys are unchanged.
That is so. Warriors, there's a few changes there also. Tohu Harris and David Fusatu'a are back, and so is Adam Pompey. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck is back at fullback with Reece Walsh in at 5'8", which puts Bailey Sirenen onto the interchange. Rocco Berry keeps the other debutant. He keeps his spot at centre. Ben Murdoch-Wasilla is in the starting 13 as Jazz Tubana and Jack Murchie drop to the bench. And Tom Ale goes on the interchange bench to the reserves bench.
Warriors were exposed on both sides by the Melbourne Storm. Like Remus Smith, Josh Adokar, they were tearing up the Warriors' edges respectively.
But you had to look at Melbourne, they are a top team.
And of course, the Warriors went back at Melbourne's right edge through Ken Arlo going over, so Melbourne weren't completely perfect. Their right edge was still getting exposed.
Yeah.
As for the Cowboys, well, they have been on a run of 3 straight wins, have they not?
They beat the Raiders last week, only just.
Controversially.
Yes.
Shouldn't have.
The week before...
They beat the either 12-man Bulldog side, and they beat West Tigers at Leichhardt Oval.
So they are on a 3-match winning streak.
But they don't have a good record in Gosford.
No. As the Warriors have a better record.
Not by choice, obviously.
Well, no. With Talamala back, is he going to be the impact player that they have slightly... I know they've had wins, but they obviously would have missed him when he's been out with his second-hand injury. I don't know. I reckon it could go either way, this one.
It'll heavily depend on the edges and how dominant a forward pack is in the middle of the field.
And looking at the team on paper... I feel the forward packs are pretty even. Because you've got Tanua Brown, Kane Evans, Josh Curran, Murdoch-Wasilla and Tohu Harris in the Warriors, compared to the Cowboys. You've got Cohen Hess, Jordan McLean, Shane Wright, Ben Condon and Jason Talamolo. I reckon the Warriors will win this one by 14.
So you're going with Warriors 13-plus victory?
Yep. It's me smoky for the week.
Well, the Cowboys were able... The left edge of the Cowboys has been in a big part of the 3-game winning run, and they'll be coming up against the Warriors on the right-hand side, so they'll be looking at Nikorima, they'll be looking at Fuzatua and Rocco Berry, if he's playing on the right-hand side of the field.
I think he will be.
Well...
They'll be targeting...
That'll be the main thing. The Cowboys' left edge. If the Warriors can defend that, then I think they can match it in the middle or with the way they've got their forward pack set up. And I think the Warriors can come away 1-12. I think there will be a response out of Anzac Day, and the fact that they feel they could have matched it with the Melbourne Storm, I think they can do 1-12 here.
Now, the final game of the weekend is the St. George Illawarra Dragons versus the West Tigers at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong.
And there have been a couple of changes for the Tigers. Joey Leilua comes back into centres with Michael Cheekham dropping back to the reserves. Tom McKaylee back on the bench as well, with Zane Musgrove being returned to the reserves as well.
And big news for the Red V, Ben Hunt finally makes his return after being a 50-50 last week, which sees Jack Bird move
back to the centres
and Clay Ramsey to the wing. Jordan Pereira and Ravalawa are out due to a 3 and 2 week suspension respectively, which is Max Fia guy fill the other vacant wing position.
For his first game of the year.
Yes. Tyrrell Fuimayano is clear to play after copping a fine. And Josh Kerr is named to start in the second row in place of Billy Burns after a late swap last week. Well, both teams are coming off...
I think this is just very simple to say. Don't you think?
Well, they both came off heavy defeats.
Horrible losses, yes.
Yes.
But I think the Dragons will be the first to bounce back, and they'll bounce back much faster than the Tigers will.
I'm not biased often, but yes, I agree. With Ben Hunt coming back.
The Tigers...
And with the Tigers, they just don't seem
their attack is lacking.
They've got no points in them,
but
basically.
defence is absolutely abysmal. So imagine Duffy breaking through. It'll be the same thing as Tom Trbojevic breaking through. And I think the influence of Ben Hunt, after the way he started this season,
Yeah.
And it'll be a bit slow, but I think if the Dragons start off strong, they'll be in a very capable position there.
And Bird's been playing good football at the moment.
So they'll be going at the Tigers' right edge, obviously.
Rams has been playing good footy. Basically, the whole back line's been playing good football at the moment. Barring the 2 losses.
It's hard to say that the Tigers can match up with the Dragons in the middle because they can't. There are individuals that will try and drag the Tigers kicking and screaming, but at the end of the day, the Tigers' weak edge is just weak defense overall, and the fact that they're getting towed up, you got to say the Dragons 13+.
Oh, no doubt about that. As you said, Dragons will be the better team to bounce back from a heavy defeat, and I'm going to say Dragons will win by a big margin of 36.
Well, we leave the NRL behind for our round 4 wrap of the Betfred Super League, and we start off with the Wigan Warriors downing the Casper Tigers 22-12.
Inside 10 minutes, Jordan Turner with a 40-20. Yeah. What can you say about 40-20 inside the first 10 minutes of the match? Pretty impressive stuff.
I think what was more impressive was the influence of Bevan French and Zach Hardacre alongside Jackson Hastings, because after that, Wigan turned the screws on the Casper Tigers, whether it was Hastings trying to push Hardacre through or Bevan French getting set up with some good left edge play, with Liam Farrell included.
Yeah. Well, French crossed over himself, and you could say quite easily too.
And then there was the kick in the second half from Hastings that saw French get his second try. It was just beautiful. That was like Munster and Addo-Carr, the way the half and the winger have that relationship of, I'm going to kick early because I see the fullback out of position. You just race up and you get that try to score.
Yeah, very much so. What I also found was good, Greg Eden, he had a good run after he couldn't quite get the legs though. He could have almost ran the majority of the field, but he didn't quite have the legs.
No, he was run down by Jackson Hastings.
Yes. Also, a kick cross field with the ball, which was then, I can't remember which team it was now.
I'm pretty sure Daryl Alford's also had a try.
He scored 2 tries. And I think one of them was a kick cross field, which was then batted back. The ball was then batted back to a Casper player. I can't remember who it was. And when it was quickly passed out to Alford, who scored his second. So that was a pretty... that was to level the game up at 12 apiece.
But Wigan were able to run away with it at the back end thanks to Zach Hardacre and Bevan French. And with the second try...
Well, Powell went across. He barged his way through from dummy half.
That was just lazy market defence from the Casper Tigers, you have to say. If you're letting Sam Powell die from dummy half to put the game beyond reasonable doubt for the Wigan Warriors, you need to have a good look in the mirror. And that was Castlefords' first loss of the year as well. So the question is now, how do they respond?
It'll be interesting to see.
It'll definitely start on the right edge for the men from West Yorkshire.
Next game.
St Helens downing the Huddersfield Giants 18 points to 10.
The Huddersfield did give it to them.
Well, at the same time, you'd also have to say Saints aren't playing their best football at the moment. They're still finding ways to win, especially if you think of how they scored the first try of the night. Farge puts up the bomb, Wellesby comes down with it, offloads back to him, or was it, maybe it would have been Lachlan Coote that Coote put the kick up. Jack Wellesby comes down with it. He's been very good with the constant changing to the St Helens backline with the centres mainly. Yes. And he delivered again.
Yeah, putting Theo Fargs over. I'd say that was a terrific bomb kick. I've never seen one as much.
And then the flick pass out the back to send the little Frenchman over.
And that was inside 5 minutes. That pretty much set the tone.
And then Saints' right edge, even without its usual suspects of Kevin Nagama and Tommy Makinson, to set up Mark Percival the way they did, that was just wonderful. Going at Aiden Caesar was key for St Helens.
And he scored after missing the first 3 games of the season.
Well, the next three following in his first appearance of the season.
Well, that one. That's what I
He's
meant.
in against Salford. But Huddersfield, they answered back in kind in the second half after being 12-0 down. And Aidan Caesar himself really got into it when he set up Chris McQueen for that interesting try.
It was a cutout ball pass.
It was clean. And that hole just opened up for Huddersfield and for McQueen to go through.
And the size of McQueen would have helped too.
And then Jack Cogger, I don't know what he was thinking. Whether he could have gone himself or whether Jermaine McGilvery was screaming for the ball on the outside.
Well, I personally feel Cogger could have gone himself and scored a try. But he did have some St. Helens defenders around him. And he probably didn't want to risk of it not being a try. So he probably just passed it off to be a better safe than sorry to McGilvery, who went over in the corner, but he didn't have much room left in that corner.
No, but I still think it's a bit of a case of too little too late, that Huddersfield were trying to be competitive, but when Johnny Lomax went over at 12-4, that was pretty much all said and done, regardless of how much Huddersfield did try and throw at St. Helens.
But that McGilvery try, that pretty much, maybe to me, signalled the comeback mission to try and hunt down St. Helens. But in the end, it wasn't.
Well, hold that thought of being on the hunt, because now we move to the city of Hull, where Hull Kingston Rovers down the Leeds Rhinos 26 points to 6.
Well, the rate that Leeds have been playing at the moment, it's not a surprising result, in my view, because Leeds haven't been playing the best as of late. Hull KR, it's good to see them have victory.
The confidence after that that drop goal win over Huddersfield, and all of a sudden they've just turned the screws here. Kane Linnett, for instance, 146 running metres in the second row, 3 tries and 8 tackle breaks he had.
He had a standout game. I also felt that Abdul had a standout game. To send Kane Leonard over for the first time, he had a perfectly weighted grubber kick straight through the defensive line. Kane Leonard comes through and puts the ball down.
And even though Leeds have actually had Ash Handley and Conrad Hurrell back in the lineup, it just didn't work out for the Rhinos.
No.
And I believe Richie Myler also back in the lineup as well.
An early opportunity did go begging though for the Rovers, as Brad Takarangi dropped the ball just short of the try line early on.
We can't really fault Takarangi. It is only his first game in Hull KR colours for the year.
True. I can't remember who kicked it, but Ryan Hall, after a beautiful bounce from the kick, scored his 200th career try against his old club to make things even better for himself, I suppose you could say.
Well, he now moves to second, as we alluded to at the top of the hour, to second on Super League's all-time top try scorers list. The only man he's got to chase down now is the man who sits on 247 career tries, his former teammate, now assistant coach, Danny Mcguire.
Do you reckon he can get it?
Well, it depends how well Hull KR play over the next part of this year, because if they set up Hall well, and he's got a 3-year deal, I believe, to work with, so
he's got plenty of time.
It could be possible.
Barring he doesn't get injured, which I hope he doesn't. To get Hull's, what led to Hull KR's second try, scored by another former Rhino, Matt Powser, was pretty much head down and power in the legs.
Yeah, soft defence from Leeds.
Yeah.
And speaking of soft defence, the Salford Red Devils absolutely running over the top of the Leeds Centurions in the second half to register their first win in 2021 at 34 points to 8.
Yes, after who was leading at half time?
It was Lee in front.
Lee in front at 8.
Making a meal of Salford's right edge defensively, but then got return serve in the second half. Whether it was Kevin Brown, Harvey first try, Harvey Levette, or even James Greenwood, were taking advantage of the weaker Centurion side, and they just played hard, Salford, in the second half.
The Centurions didn't even bother about it. Well, I feel they didn't even bother attempting try and stop Harvey Levette with a minute to go to score that last try in the match. They didn't even, they just stood there like statues. But it was the last minute of the match, and it kind of was. They weren't going to be. It wasn't going to be a game try-saving tackle anyway. So.
Well, Harvey Levette definitely had a good day. Of course, that last try of the day, as well as two previous try assists, one of them being for Kevin Brown, the other being for Elliot Keir. Salford have finally clicked after poor performances in both league and cup ties.
Yep.
Could this be the start of a Salford revival?
Well, they do play Casper next, so
we'll see how that pans out.
That will be an interesting game. But back to the Salford League game, there was just some beautiful setup work from basically all the tries that have been scored. A beautiful pass and a quick little sidestep helped James Greenwood crash over. For the Red Devils, while for the Centurions, just over 5 minutes into the game, and with acres of space, and Matty Russell scored.
But that was it for Lee.
That was pretty much it.
Their defence fell apart after that, and then for Kevin Brown to just dummy and go at the line without much opposition. For a second try, I think it was, or one of the two tries.
Well, Ian Thornley, they were just caught by surprise when Heath went over to put them back in front by 2 at the break. And that was where it stopped. Kent Seo running the length of the field to score
off a beautiful offload from Chris Inu, taking advantage of that really turned the momentum in Salford's favour. Just that intercept try alone.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The final nail in the coffin for Lee was too classy and plenty of space is what led to Chris Atkins' try. That pretty much summed up the night for Lee Centurions.
Yes, it did.
And won comfortably 34-8.
Meanwhile, back on the other side of Hull, the Hull SC got very lucky in a narrow win over Wakefield Trinity, coming out 20-14 victors.
Yes, and after only narrowly holding the lead 8-6 at the break. So, Wakefield were there with them, but...
This game could have gone either way.
Oh, easily. Especially with that 8-6 score at half-time.
But I think Hull SC were able to win out in the end, but only just when leading 14-12, I believe it was.
At one stage of the match, yes. Mason Lino.
Scores his first try in Wakefield colours.
From a 15-metre, from halfway, pretty much the centre of a pitch. That was very good to see. Adam Swift. There was a great contest in the air.
Oh, between him and Lee Kershaw, wasn't it?
Yes. Which resulted in Adam Swift putting the ball down in the try zone to extend the lead. That was a pretty good contest in the air. That could have gone either way. Mark Sneed went the pass to Jake Connor. Jake Connor. But it was an intercept to Lee Kershaw, who ran another length of the field try to score Wakefield's first of the match.
Yeah.
2 length of the field tries in the same day.
Certainly.
How often do you see that happen?
No, it's very rarely that you see 2 intercept tries at opposite ends of the field. But Wakefield were in this up until the point they weren't.
Yeah. So until, like you said, they were up into it. But it was pretty much when they got to when they were into it, before they dropped off, it could have gone either way. We could have seen Wakefield get their first win in the season, but that didn't happen. And
now the pressure on Chris Chester only continues to mount at this point, now that he's 0-5 in both league and cup.
Yes. Another quick thing, Ryan Hampshire executed a wonderful grubber kick, which ended in the hands of James Batchelor, who put more points on the board for Wakefield Trinity.
So I would think tries off kicks and long-range efforts will be needed to address for Hull FC in their next match. And the final game of round 4, Warrington Wolves getting up over the Catalan Dragons 24-8. You would have thought after an early Warrington mistake, with James Maloney scoring the first and only try for the Catalan Dragons, that it would be another Dragons victory, but that was not to be the case.
No, it was probably the easiest try that James Maloney will ever get. It's just an error, like I said, from the Wolves. And Maloney is there, scooped up and put it over. Pretty easy.
The game plan could be obvious to see. It was both involving both sides' left edges. Catalan tried going through Warrington's right side, but the Wolves' left edge had much more success, especially with Gareth Widdop. That beautiful kick to set up Toby King and just puts it over the top, crossfield. King comes up. I think he's challenging Sam Tompkins to Tom Davies, and he just comes down with the ball. It's absolute perfection.
And to make things even better, Widdop scored another magnificent try himself. There was what I call an extremely high kick by Ratchford. It was knocked back by another of the Warrington players, and it landed in the hands of Widdop, who went by himself to score.
And then, of course, Jake Marmo also came up with an intercept try as well for
to run 100 metres.
Yeah, just...
What is it with intercept tries and long-range tries?
Catalan tried to dig into Warrington's right side defensively, but that just backfired immediately.
No doubt about that. Darryl Clark was up to his magic, yet again, as he set up Ben Curry, who went over to put the Wolves back into the contest.
Yeah, but since then, Catalan did not throw a punch.
No.
Punch. Not after they got the first points of the match, not after they scored the first try. It was all Warrington from after James Maloney scored.
Yeah. It just... I personally thought it was going to be a lot closer than what the final score being a 24-8 in favour of Warrington.
Well, it definitely shows Warrington are not exactly pushovers, or they're still a contender at this point in time. I'm 4 rounds into the season.
Yes. Still a long way to go, though, so things might change. Fortunes might change very, very quickly.
And speaking of fortunes changing, round 5 of the Betfred Super League kicks off with the Wigan Warriors at home at the DW, who hosting Hull FC, the unbeaten Hull FC, you would have to say.
It's going to be a very, very tight contest because both teams are coming off victories. And if Hull play like they did last week, they could be the ones
Hull
to win.
have demonstrated defensive resilience. I think that has been quite apparent in the games that they have played. But they are coming up against the Wigan Warriors. And now they've got full strength troop getting closer to full strength as the weeks roll on by. I mean, they beat Huddersfield all round 1. 2 tries they only conceded. 1 try against Salford. The 14-all draw with the Warrington Wolves before only just holding out Wakefield Trinity. But they are coming up against the reigning league leaders with Hardacre, French, and Jackson Hastings firing upon all cylinders.
Yes. This game could end up being another draw with the rate both have been playing at the moment.
I would really have... For Hull to win, I would think they have to try and hit Jackson Hastings with everything they got to try and shut down that left edge.
And try and shut down Bevan French too.
Especially on the wing. Try and keep him out of the game as much as they can, but I'm going to have to go a Wigan 1-12 victory here. I just think Wigan have the potential to overwhelm Hull and hand them their first loss after a good start to the season.
I'm going the other side of the fence, and I'm going to say Hull to win in a 1-12 margin.
Now, the first of the Friday games that will be shown exclusively to our league, if you have the subscription service for that, Wakefield hosting the Catalan Dragons at the Mobile Rocket Stadium. I don't know how much more Wakefield can take before another blowout scoreline hits them, and they are facing the Catalan Dragons for the second time in 3 weeks across all competitions.
And if it's going to be a blowout score, it could be potentially this game.
Even though they've lost Matt Whitley, Catalan have the benefit of either calling the choice of Benjamin Julien or Joel Tompkins. I think if he's available or back from suspension, which I don't think he is, but with Julien coming in, it's no real nose loss for the Catalan Dragons, and I think Steve McNamara will be looking for a response. And I think it'll just be simple as saying it's going to be a Catalan 13-plus victory.
Well, I wouldn't want to only get 8 points on the board like they did last week, so it should be an easy victory for Catalan. So I've got them as Catalans to win by a 13-plus score.
Meanwhile, the Leeds Centurions have their first home game of the year, but unfortunately it is against the champions St. Helens. 3 words, St. Helens 13-plus.
Yeah, well, they've gone undefeated this season, St. Helens.
They haven't been their best, the Saints, but they're still finding ways to win.
That is very true.
And Leeds Centurions, I think, just pray now. Pray that there is mercy shown.
Well, the Leeds Centurions lost by a considerable margin last week. You have to say, at least. St. Helens will continue their winning ways and win by 13-plus. There's no other way to put that game.
And the main game of Friday night that will be shown on Sky Sports and, of course, on Fox League here across Australia and New Zealand, the Salford Red Devils hosting the Casper Tigers.
Well, one team that has finally got the first win of the season in the Red Devils, they'll be looking to go back-to-back, but they do come up a Castleford side that was there or thereabouts against Wigan, which they end ultimately losing.
It will be a very intense match, and I think Castleford's right edge has to really step up after being exposed by both Bevan French's running and the fact that Jackson Hastings could pick Niall Evalds out in defence and with the kicks that help set up French for the corner.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be the big thing. Salford, meanwhile, they've got to go up against this ferocious Tigers side that can put tries on and put them on fast. Just ask the Centurions.
Yes.
That'll be my main concern for Salford, being able to match it with the Casper pack.
But out of them two teams, the one that's the better form heading into this match is who is the one that's got a better form coming into this match? I'm assuming it's Castleford that's got the better form heading into the match. Yeah, so since the start of the year, Castleford have won against Warrington 21-12, won against Leeds 18-10, and once against the Centurions 52-16, while losing to the Wigan Warriors last week 22-12.
Whilst Salford, meanwhile, have only managed to score 1 try in their first 3 games of 2021, and then in round 4 record their first win of the year against the Leeds Centurions. But I think there still is a bit of a class difference between Salford and Castleford, and I would think Darryl Powell would be disappointed that they didn't go on with the job against Wigan, and I think they will respond in kind against Salford. So I'm going to say it's going to be a Castleford 1-12 victory.
I'm going to go the other way and tip an upset victory and tip the Salford Red Devils to go back-to-back for the first time this season to win in a 1-12 margin.
Now, the Warrington Wolves against Hull Kingston Rovers, and after 2 weeks of getting it wrong, Greg Inglis will finally make his debut for Steve Price's side against Hull Kingston Rovers.
Is that official?
It is.
From?
Steve Price has actually said in a statement that Greg Inglis will play this round.
Right. So we've got that cleared up.
It's happening this time. We definitely know now.
Yes. That's just going to boost Warrington even more. But
there's a problem.
I've been playing good footy.
In 2 weeks, they have put on 2 good wins, but they are coming up against the Warrington Wolves, who have put on some good form themselves, and have not lost a game since round 1, which I would think is the more important aspect of that. But the big problem is with Greg Inglis is where do you put him when you got Jake Marmo, who has scored a try that kept Warrington in the game against Hull FC, then a beautiful long-range try against the Catalan Dragons. Do you drop him?
No.
Do you drop Josh Fewless, who's been playing solid for Warrington? Do you drop Matty Ashton from the side? It's the question of where do you put Greg Inglis?
Or do you bring him off the bench?
Oh, I don't think he's going to come in off the bench. No.
This is a bit of a selection headache.
I mean, it's a good headache to have, but
oh, yeah.
eventually Inglis will force one of these two guys out of their spot.
Well, I don't think it'll be Mamo. The way he's been playing, well, I know all the previous three players you mentioned have been playing good football.
It'll be a problem when Tom Lynham also comes back and when you factor Blake Austin in. Once you have all that in, you're probably looking at the Warrington Wolves backline being 1 to 7 by their squad numbers, with no room for Ashton, no room for Marmo, and no room for Josh Fulis as well. It's just going to be like, it's just going to be that way.
It's going to have to wait and see what the coach does in that way. Hull KR, they have managed to beat a top team in Leeds in round 4.
Yes, they have. This is their first victory of the year, as well as it being the victory against the top 6 side, as it is.
Yeah. So it could go either way, but I feel if Hull play like they did last week, they'll get the upset win and in the 1 to 12 margin.
I'm going to go Warrington 13 plus. I think Greg Inglis will be a very big inclusion. He will energise the Wolves' attack. And the right edge, if Josh Charnley can get on the end of a couple of Greg Inglis breaks, I think he's going to really get back into try-scoring form.
And for the final match of round 5...
The Huddersfield Giants up against the Leeds Rhinos. Well, two clubs that have been struggling as of late. Leeds haven't won a game since round 1. Huddersfield haven't won a game at all.
But they did almost win against St. Helens, which is a top team.
They were competitive, but they didn't get over the top of Saints, which is the biggest problem. As for Leeds, they have got problems.
Well, they lost by 20 last week.
Yeah, that's a big problem defensively, and I'm pretty sure Richard Agar will be looking to correct that defence, especially down the right-hand channel.
So, based on last week's games, the team that's got the better form is the Giants. That's just my feel heading into this match, based on last week. Not overall for the season, but just the match.
Well, Huddersfield have started slow against literally every single opposition they've gone up against, especially against Hull KR. It was a slow start when they conceded 18-0. And of course, the fastest try in the world when Ben Crooks dived over in 7 seconds. Leeds, meanwhile, they have had problems with injury, even though they had Ash Hanley, Conrad Hurrell, and Richie Myler all back in the side for Leeds. Something still seems off about them.
It does, and they're not playing like what they usually do. But I'm tipping Huddersfield to get the win over Leeds 13 plus.
You think Leeds are going to concede 13 plus for the second time in 2 weeks?
Yep. I don't know about what exact margin, but it'll be 13 plus loss for Leeds.
I don't know where Ian Watson goes from here, but it's not looking good for Huddersfield. And I think I'm going to have to go... From what I've seen of Huddersfield, I don't think they can win a game at this point in time. And on that, I will have to go Leeds 1 to 12.
Fair enough. So one's on one side, that's saying that Leeds will lose by 13 plus, and the other one says that Leeds will win 13 plus.
Isn't that the way of the world with democracy?
Yeah.
All right. That is full time from us. If you like that, please remember to like and subscribe to the Sideline Chat podcast so you never miss a week of rugby league action. Hope you enjoy the action of round 8 of the NRL and round 5 of the Betfred Super League, and we'll be back with you next week. Alongside Mark Henry, I am Connor Marcellus, and you have been listening to the Sideline Chat podcast. Bye for now.
Catch us next week.